Welcome back to my channel. Watching routine? Please don't forget to subscribe.
We're here at Gamescom 2025, and at Gamescom 2025, there's been some games that are long overdue, like Hollow Knight Silksong is the prime example, but we've got to see another one that's been coming for a very long time, and that's a sci-fi horror game called Routine. Matt, tell us about Routine.
Dale, this is from a studio called Luna Software. They're basically 3 people working out of a room in Manchester.
Yeah.
And they've been working on this for like a decade. We saw it way back around 2013. It's since gone through, I think, like 2 engine upgrades. It's gone from Unreal 3 to 5. And it is a first-person sci-fi kind of horror game, but it feels unlike any horror game I played before. It's like real slow burn, kind of like eerie atmosphere, not kind of a jump scare game at all.
No, I mean, the trailers make it look like it's perhaps more horror, and it might be like in the full game, it might have way more horror elements. But what we saw was way more of like a style piece. So this game is like full of 80s VHS aesthetic, really. That's what they're going for.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Alien Isolation is going to be the thing that I think immediately comes to mind. It uses a lot of that kind of analog VHS, a lot of interfaces that have that old school retro sci-fi kind of appeal to it.
Yeah.
You can tell that the guy that's kind of the lead on the team is obsessed with like 1980s technology. He wants all of those kind of clicky buttons and sort of clanky interfaces. And you really see that by the fact that like the main tool that you use throughout this game is called the CAT, the Cosmonaut Assistance Tool. And it kind of looks like a gun. It's like a big sort of thing that you have in your hand, but it's got a camera module on it. It basically looks like you're carrying around a Walkman attached to an old 80s camera, attached to various other kind of things. It's weird in the way that like it might be a weapon slash tool slash hacking device, but it almost works. Do you get what I mean by it's almost like a flight sim in the way that every button on it you manually have to press, you have to manually slide things into it to use it as part of the environment.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I mean, we're talking about the VHS aesthetic. That's not just a visual like screen thing. It's also the idea of like the way that cartridges load in, the way you add power and elements. There's all these flipping mechanical hinges and actual like buttons. My favorite thing when you talk about the developer who's obsessed with this aesthetic is when he was talking about designing UI elements. Like, how do we get it so this game has no UI or intention to have no UI, and so it's all about being in the environment, teaching the player where to press buttons, what to do. And I floated the idea of like, oh, maybe you could have an LED light around the button. He was like, absolutely not. Did not want that at all. He wants to stay true to that aesthetic.
Yeah, it is like, it feels really authentic to that time. Of course, the idea is that you're on this kind of lunar base, and can really only be described as kind of an American mall, but set on the moon.
It's so strange.
It's set in the 90s, but it's as if in the 1980s we colonized the moon and created this area.
Right.
And basically you're exploring it, you're trying to figure out really what's happened. Everything has clearly gone to hell in a handbasket. I'm kind of getting a Soma vibe to it, like you're on your own. And rather than it being a horror game that is about kind of like shooting zombies or outrunning monsters, it's much more about kind of figuring out what happened here. That's not to say that there aren't enemies. There are these kind of robots that are stationed around this kind of shopping center. And you're trying to find your way through to find different items, essentially keys to unlock the next section of the map, while these robots are kind of on patrol. Now, when I say they're on patrol, most of the time they kind of sit around not doing a lot, but then triggers in the environment, so you're passing in front of them, and then suddenly they start chasing you. Then it becomes a little bit closer to something like Alien Isolation, or maybe a bit like the Stalker enemies that we've spoken about that in Resident Evil this year.
Sure. I'd say the big difference there is though those Stalkers are you can often outrun, and when you've made space, you're free. But a Routine seems to have this really clever system that they described to us, which has a bunch of robots that are lined up that aren't active. However, it's almost like Ultron. It's like there's one consistent being active at any time, and if you move into the proximity of the next one will activate. So like just running away isn't going to solve your problem. You're just going to bump into the next one.
Yeah, so for example, kind of like I was being chased by one of these robots, and the atmosphere that it does for that is really good. The sound design really makes it feel like it's on your tail. And then when I kind of outran it down a corridor and got into the next room, and in that room was another robot, and so the AI leaps out of the brain of the robot that was chasing me into the one that's now in front of me, and suddenly now I have to kind of work on my feet and get away. Of course, the C80 device is a weapon to some degree. All it does is overload them, temporarily disable them, and use a hell of a lot of battery in the process. So there's a lot of kind of like that management of your resources in a way, because it's all the battery power, but sort of management of the space and making sure you're using the station effectively. I think very much like indicates through the way that you can crouch and you can look under things, you can lean around areas. It's very much about analyzing the space before you do anything within it.
And interestingly, like we touched on earlier, that they're trying to use UI completely, and what that's resulted in is computer screens that look like 80s computer screens, really, that you hack into and then you control. And then your right stick, I'd assume, if you're playing on controller, controls like the mouse on screen, and then you're actually using a computer monitor as well to get the necessary information you need to get about the environment that you're in. It's very clever.
Yeah, so one of the things that I think was interesting about that is there is a sequence where you need to get through a door. And this is very, very classic kind of any video game, right? You need to find the key code to get through the door. For this, you could open up the emails and you could get to the point where a key code displays. But all it did was it showed you the numbers on screen, and you needed to work out what the person before you in this world had typed in.
Yeah.
The way you did that was that you used a module in the cat that put a UV filter over the camera, so you could see where kind of like the blood stains were on the screen. But obviously, because the UI can move and you can literally move the windows around it, you had to then line up the kind of UI that have got the control panel over where those fingerprints were, and then work out, okay, if this person had got blood on their fingers, where would they have put the blood first, and the blood would have worn off their fingers as they tapped in. And that's how you worked out the order of the code. Tap it in, door opens, robots behind door, terror ensues.
I would say the short demo that we had felt, we were under a bit of constraint because we got a short appointment. But I really think this is the game that you're going to want to sink your teeth into. Like, you're really going to want to take your time and explore these environments. There's not hints, there's not waypoints. It's really about exploring the environment and working out where to go next, and really taking your time, which, in a world of the modern like Call of Duty games where everything's about going as fast as possible, it's quite refreshing.
It's very hardcore in that way. It is a game designed for people to fully immerse themselves in. And I think you're right, like, we only got to play for about 25 minutes, which I don't think was anywhere near long enough to even really get to grips with how the gun worked. When I say that you manually have to press every switch, you literally, to move it from one module to another, have to press a button to hold the gun in front of you, rotate it, push the button that you want, rotate the gun back, then stare down its kind of camera module or whatever. I think it probably will take about 2 or 3 hours to really get to grips with how all that works, and how even like the UI system that runs all the way through it, because there are these constant computer terminals that you can hack into, because you're a software engineer is part of what your character can do. I think that is going to take a long time to understand, on top of the idea that the objectives simply do not explain themselves to you.
Yeah. One thing we haven't really touched on, and probably the last thing we should mention, is I didn't get to actually hear the game. So I was watching you play through the game, but you were playing it with headphones on, and I get the impression that the sound is particularly impactful. Yeah,
it's got that real, if you watch the trailers, you'll see how that VHS aesthetic is also represented in the music as well. Like these ambient sounds and kind of like underlying kind of melodies. I hesitate to say melodies. It's not that sort of game. It doesn't have
drones.
It's got that real, I'd say Alien Isolation is probably a good point to put it, but then you've also got like the real distinct mechanical sounds of these robots that are kind of stalking you through the facilities when you've woken them up. And they also have this, you'll notice in the trailer, they can kind of like reach out and grab you, and they've got this weird kind of like face kind of module that opens up with teeth in it. And when they do that, they kind of make very strange, you can hear like almost like the tape reels inside them getting chewed up and like falling out of place. It's unsettling in a way that I don't see this as a game where you're going to be in action sequences, probably for not much more than maybe 10% of the entire game. But I think at all points you're going to feel like unnerved, unsettled. In that way, a lot like what Soma was.
Yeah. Oh, it's very exciting, and I think we get to play it quite soon as well. Like, it's coming out later this year. Can you believe it? We're getting Silksong and we're getting Routine. They're finally coming out. What's next? Star Citizen? I don't know. Like, we're going to get something else. But anyway, make sure you keep watching IGN's coverage of Gamescom 20.
Thanks for watching.